Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. It's Mark here from Digital Groove Online, and this week I thought I would show you something quite interesting with regards to the drum rack with inside Ableton Live. We normally use simpler and we can bring in like one-shot samples into the project and we can play them melodically and we can manipulate the MIDI just to move through different rhythms and play like leads and bass progressions and things like that. And we're generally drawn to simpler when we're using one-shot samples like that. But did you know you could use DrumRack to do the same thing? I just want you to hear me out. Whenever you use DrumRack, you can put your samples in there, and generally, whenever you draw in, a pattern, it will play it at the pitch that the drum sample was loaded in at. And yes, you can manipulate the pitch up and down, but you can't play it melodically. So I'm going to show you a way around that, and that allows you to keep all your samples within the drum rack and utilize all the parameters within drum rack as well. So if you stick around for the next couple of minutes, it's not a long video. I'm going to show you how to do that. And you might implement that in your own productions. I find it quite useful. So we're going to start off for ease of use. I've brought in a kick sample already. And I've already created just some sort of MIDI and some sort of one-shot samples just to cut the time down so that we can get through the video as quickly as possible. This is what the actual kick drum sounds like. Just quite basic, okay? And the next thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to add that drum rack in. So I'm going to go up here and type in drum rack. And we're going to go to all. And there we go. We've got a drum rack in there. And we've got these pads down here that we can bring our one-shot samples in. And I've got the samples already inside the application itself that I want to use. So sample number 1. And sample number 2. So if you're with me now, generally what we would do is draw a MIDI clip and we can draw in the patterns and it will trigger the actual one-shot samples, but we can't play it melodically. What I mean by that is move various notes up and down. You can pitch the sound up and down, but it stays at that pitch. So let's see where we can move from here. We've got the bass sample in and we have got a pluck sample in. Okay, so let me just go to the drum rack here. And we can see we have a bass sample and a pluck sample. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a blank MIDI channel here, and we're going to call that bass. And what we're going to do then is we're going to take the MIDI of the bass here, and we're going to bring it in and drop it into the bass MIDI channel. Now it has the bass notes in here that we want to play, but as you can see the MIDI channel is blank. There are no instruments attached to it. So what we're going to do to trigger the sound inside DrumRack and to be able to listen to the key changes rather than just playing rhythms with DrumRack, we now need to send this blank MIDI channel to the DrumRack and trigger it. So what we do over here is we go to the output channel underneath MIDI output and we're going to select drum rack. And underneath that you will see you have two samples. We've got the bass and we've also got the pluck. Now as this is the bass MIDI, I'm going to select bass. And now if I hit the solo button on the drum rack, just turn it down a little bit and I hit play, that is the actual progression of the bass being triggered inside DrumRack. If you're still sort of confused as to where I'm going with this, if I was to put a blank MIDI track in here, we can only trigger the original sample's pitch by putting rhythms in here. So hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say now. So by putting in a blank MIDI channel, programming in the rhythm and the bass changes that we want, and then sending that information to the actual sound within DrumRack, we can now trigger that and play it melodically, whilst keeping all our samples inside the drum rack, which is pretty cool. So we're going to create another one here, insert another MIDI track, and we're going to call this pluck. And I'm going to go back into my project where I've created the MIDI already, and we're going to bring this into the pluck track. And like before, when we sent the bass through to the drum rack, we're going to click on the MIDI out. We're going to send it to the drum rack, which gets it to the machine, and then we're going to tell it which channel to trigger within the machine. This time we're going to do pluck, which is here. Boom. And I'm just going to bring down this channel a little bit and solo that and hit the pluck. And if we check over on our drum rack, we can see it's being triggered. We'll play the two of them together. And we'll drop in the kick drum. So there we go, a really simple, straightforward video this week, an educational video hopefully for most of you. We can use the drum rack, still collate all our samples, and we can create blank MIDI channels and do whatever we want rhythmically, melodically, create leads, melodies, even chords in there. You know, if you had a pad sample, for example, inside the drum rack, you can create these lovely pads and we can send that to the drum rack and still keep all our samples within the one space. So hopefully you enjoyed that there, and as I say, it was a very short video this week. It's just something that popped into my head that I've started to use a little bit more recently, and it's not something I see a lot of people do. So, you know, if it's for you, give it a go, see what you think, and I will see you next week.